Hey guys, tonight we visit the most sunlit nightmare in modern American memory. You're standing in paradise, barefoot, the volcanic soil still warm from the morning sun. You hear the soft rustle of palm leaves overhead and smell something sweet, maybe overripe tangerines at the market or grilled fish marinated in soy. You're a young soldier posted to Oahu. Your shirt clings a bit from the humidity, and you're already halfway through a lazy Sunday. Then, the sky growls. This isn't a thunderstorm. It's something worse, something wrong. And you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is there. I always love seeing the night owl crew. Now dim. The lights maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You blink up at the morning sky again, but it's not blue anymore. It's shredded. There are planes way too many, and they're diving low, spitting sound, like a wasp nest cracked open. Your first thought is, that's a weird drill. Your second thought is lost under the first bomb. You feel it before you hear it, a ripple in your ribs, your stomach twisting like laundry in a wringer. Somewhere nearby, a car alarm screams a full 60 years too early. You duck instinctively behind a fruit cart. Or maybe it's a wooden crate stacked with coconuts. Either way, it offers exactly zero protection. You hear the buzz of engines overhead like 1,000 hornets in sync. Around you, locals scream, scatter collapse. Some look up and freeze like deer. One old man drops to his knees and starts praying in Japanese. You try not to make eye contact with the blood pooling under his sandal. This is Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. And congratulations, you're now part of a very long, very famous Sunday. The air smells like burning sugar and gasoline. A weird combination, but it sticks. You'll remember it even when you're 93 and can't find your house keys. You were stationed here for the view, you joke sometimes. The Navy's idea of a vacation. And it was beautiful until today. There's a whistle in your ears. Not from a person from pressure, like your brain is squeezing out your eardrums. You crawl toward the barracks, or what's left of them. Bits of wall flutter like confetti. You pass a guy, private something. You can't remember his name now. His mouth is open, but he's not yelling. He might be mouthing mom or bomb. Could be both. You trip over something soft. Don't look. You look anyway. A shoe still tied, still full. You retch, but nothing comes up. Up the hill, someone tries to get a Jeep started. The ignition ticks and ticks. Someone else is yelling coordinates into a radio that died 2 minutes ago. A Japanese zero zips so low overhead, you swear you see the pilot's goggles. You wonder if he has a family. You wonder if you're about to die, and if your own family will ever find out what happened. Historians still argue whether the U.S. had enough advance warning to prevent this. But today, down here on the tarmac, it sure doesn't feel like anyone saw this coming. You make it to the edge of Battleship Row. This is where the real horror lives. You recognize the USS Arizona, by the way. It's not fully a ship anymore. It's broken in the middle, like someone stepped on a toy in the bathtub. Flames lick the water's surface. Men leap from decks into fire. One guy lands on a floating oil slick and just doesn't move. You stare too long, and your sergeant yanks you backward by your collar. "Move," he yells. You move. You end up in a supply shack. There's a typewriter overturned on the floor. Someone's unfinished report still in it. You skim it while catching your breath, requesting additional laundry detergent for East Barracks. You almost laugh. Almost. It's funny how war starts without permission. One moment, you're worrying about clean socks. The next, you're trying not to bleed out behind a barrel of pickles. The noise dips just for a second. That's when you notice your hands shaking. Not just nerves, adrenaline. Your body's running on instinct now, same as everyone else's. And somehow you're still alive. A quirk of fate, bad aim, dumb luck. Maybe. Later people will write books about this. They'll assign motive plot foreshadowing. But here right now, it's just chaos. The surreal part. Some guy is still trying to raise the flag, like while planes are bombing the harbor. You'll never forget that. He's shot through the shoulder, but he won't let go of the rope. Back outside, the sky is darker now. Not from sunset, just smoke. It blots out the sun like a blackout curtain. You breathe through your sleeve, hoping not to inhale whatever burning metal does to lungs. You find a radio guy hunched over a comms box. He's muttering, trying to reach Honolulu, then Washington. "We're under attack," he whispers. Then again, louder. "We're under attack." He keeps repeating it even when the signal dies. Like maybe if he says it enough, someone will believe him. Someone tosses you a rifle. You've never fired one outside training. It feels heavier now. The strap digs into your neck. You don't even know where to point it. By noon, it's mostly over. The Japanese planes peel off like flocks of crows. The silence they leave behind is worse than the noise. You stumble back toward your bunk, or what's left of it. Your duffel is gone. Your photo of your sister is burned at the corner. But somehow, your comb is still there. Of all things, you pocket it, because why not? You hear someone crying softly. It's a young guy, barely old enough to shave. He's rocking back and forth with his helmet in his lap. You sit beside him, not talking. "What's there to say?" He whispers. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." No, it wasn't. By dusk, your uniform smells like cordite sweat and sea salt. You don't remember where your cap went. Doesn't matter. You're sitting on a piece of curb knees, up fingers streaked with someone else's blood. You're not even sure who. Nearby, someone is playing a harmonica. It's out of tune and too soft to hear clearly over the crackling fires. But you catch the melody now, and then, home on the range. Maybe. An officer stumbled past you without noticing. His glasses are gone, his hands still shaking. All around you, ships lean at impossible angles in the water. The Oklahoma has capsized completely, its belly now skyward like a dead whale. The USS West Virginia is still smoldering, Men walk among floating wreckage like zombies in pressed blues. Someone tries to make a joke and gets halfway through before choking up. You wonder if this is what survivors look like. Just dirty uniforms and stunned eyes. Across the bay, a sailor drags a burnt American flag from the water. He's missing a boot and one sleeve. He doesn't even look at the cloth, just ties it around his waist and walks off. You remember that image for the rest of your life. Back at base, there's an eerie kind of busyness. Medics running, chaplains whispering, dogs barking. It feels wrong to call it after the attack, because it still doesn't feel over. The fires haven't gone out, and neither has the noise inside your head. They hand you a clipboard. Somehow, you're now part of the casualty logging team. You write names, those you know, those you guess at, and many labeled only unknown possible Navy. Every few lines, you pause and blink hard. Not because you're sad, though you are, but because the ink keeps smearing. That's your story anyway. You hear murmurs about retaliation. Rumors spread fast. People are saying Roosevelt's going to declare war tomorrow. Others claim a Japanese fleet is circling back for round 2. One guy insists he saw paratroopers landing in the pineapple fields. Another says the world's ending. You stop listening. You're handed a cigarette by a cook. You've never smoked, but now doesn't feel like the time to be picky. You light it with a match that smells like sulfur and nostalgia. The smoke burns your throat, but it keeps your hands from trembling, at least for now. They start building a board on the mess hall wall, a crude vengeance list. Scrawled with charcoal, the words "we remember" are written at the top. Below that, a list of names ranks in units. Some men come up and touch the list like it's a gravestone. Some don't look at all. You pass by an officer speaking to a reporter. His voice is firm but shaking around the edges. No warning, he says. They hit civilians and military both. We'll respond hard. Historians still argue whether Japan meant for the strike to be purely tactical or if it was meant to crush morale. Either way, morale's crushed all right, but also galvanized. You can already feel it, something shifting. You're told to write a letter. Not to anyone in particular, just to home. A way to show the public what happened, they say. You sit down at a small table, the wood sticky with spilled coffee. You write something generic at first. Then you start over. You write honestly. Too honestly. You're not even sure it'll make it past the censors. You talk about the noise, the colors, the smell. You mention the guy who kept playing the harmonica and the kid who said this wasn't supposed to happen. You leave out the shoe. You leave out the photo that burned. You sign it with a name that suddenly feels foreign. Yours. You wonder if your family will recognize you. When or if you come home. That night, you sleep outside. Not by choice. Your bunk was vaporized. You curl up near the back of a supply truck, listening to the rumble of generators and the occasional far-off boom. You flinch every time. Above you, the stars are back. Clean and undisturbed. They don't care what happened below. You find that both comforting and vaguely insulting. The next morning, a ceremony, or something like it. The chaplain says words. Men nod. A few cry. One throws up in the bushes. Another punches a wall until his knuckles split. Grief doesn't always wear black. They ask for volunteers for salvage duty. You raise your hand without thinking. You spend the next few hours on a battered boat, fishing charred wood, and God knows what else out of the water. At one point, you find a sailor's hat floating perfectly intact. You dry it off and set it on a barrel. It looks almost ceremonial, like an offering. A Japanese torpedo tail is retrieved and laid out on a tarp. Someone pokes it with a stick as if it might still bite. Made in Yokosuka, someone mutters. You realize for the first time how far away Japan is and how close they felt yesterday. A diver surfaces and rips off his mask. Bodies in the engine room, he says flatly. No emotion, just a statement. You nod, not because you understand, but because silence feels worse. On shore, another sailor sketches the harbor. Pencil in one hand, cigarette in the other. The drawing looks too peaceful, almost pretty. You glance over his shoulder. For later, he says, when people forget. You ask him if he thinks anyone ever will. He just shrugs. Later, they issue new uniforms. Yours is too big in the shoulders, too tight in the waist. Doesn't matter. It's clean. You pin on a name tag. It feels strange to wear one when so many can't anymore. In the distance, the Arizona is still bleeding oil. You watch the slick spread rainbows on the surface and wonder how long it'll take before the ocean forgets too. You carry the clipboard like it's an extra limb now. It's not just names anymore. It's dates, medical notes, last seen locations. One entry says, died holding engine wrench. Another just reads, found near dock, unrecognizable. You don't know who writes those last words. Might have been you. A week passes. Maybe two. Time slippery. You wake to sunlight and fall asleep to distant hammering as repairs begin. There's always noise boots on gravel cranes, groaning men shouting coordinates that echo into the horizon. One morning, they hand you orders in a sealed envelope. You're being reassigned. You think it's a joke at first. You're not sure how much war one person is supposed to survive, but it feels a little greedy to keep rolling the dice. The sergeant tells you not to worry, it's still stateside. Just a stopgap before more permanent duty. He doesn't smile when he says it. You pack what little you have. A comb, a new shirt, the harmonica. Yes, someone gave it to you. No, you still can't play it. You bring it anyway. On the transport truck, there's silence at first. Then someone cracks a joke about how at least the next place probably won't be on fire. Another guy mutters something about Tokyo. Someone else slaps him on the back of the head. The mood is brittle. Like everyone's trying to laugh, but their jaws don't quite remember how. At the train station, you line up with dozens of others. You shuffle forward under buzzing fluorescent lights, boots clomping on concrete. It smells like diesel and wet wool. You clutch your duffel tight. On board the train hums to life. The seats are scratchy and too upright. There's a fan overhead that rotates just slow enough to annoy you. A kid across the aisle is snoring. loudly. You stare out the window, watching the landscape blur. First coastline, then cane fields, then endless stretches of green nothing. You don't know where you're going. That's the point. Sometime around midnight, you find a piece of paper in your pocket you didn't know was there, folded small like a fortune cookie. You open it, it's a name. C. Bishop. Roommate. That was your bunkmate back in Hawaii. Gone now. You crumple it, then smooth it out again. And again. In the morning, someone passes around coffee. It's terrible. Like someone melted chalk and stirred it into motor oil. But it's warm. The guy sitting next to you finally speaks. I heard we're headed to Montana, he says. You blink at him. Montana, he shrugs. Or Alaska. Or both. You nod as if either makes sense. Later, someone starts handing out ration kits. Inside, crackers, canned meat chocolate that tastes like wax. And cigarettes, of course. You eat slowly, chewing like it's a task. You try to nap. But every time you close your eyes, you see the harbor again. The water boiling. The flag unraveling. The shoe. Always the shoe. You wake up sweating. Someone's humming, I've been working on the railroad. You resist the urge to throw a boot. By the time you get off the train, the weather's changed. Cold now. Your breath fogs the air. A lieutenant barks instructions over the wind. You're being transferred to a place called Dutch Harbor. You have no idea where that is. Turns out, it's on the Aleutian Islands, a lonely archipelago off the coast of Alaska. Population, barely anyone. You're not sure whether you should feel relieved or forgotten. At least there are no torpedoes, yet. The barracks are basic, wooden drafty, and smell faintly of old onions. Your bunk creaks when you sit on it. You drop your bag, lie back, and stare at the ceiling. There's a knot in the wood, shaped exactly like a fish. You name it Walter. Outside, the wind howls like a banshee. You're told to get used to that. Training starts immediately. It's different here. Less drills, more survival. You learn to wrap your boots with newspaper to insulate them. You learn how to kill a fox and make soup from it. You also learn that snow can in fact fall sideways. One night, you're on watch duty. You see a light blinking out in the water. Could be a buoy. Could be a submarine. You report it anyway. Later, the CO laughs and tells you it was probably a whale with bioluminescent barnacles. You don't know whether to feel relieved or embarrassed. You meet a guy named Hawkins. Big ears, nervous laugh. He says he used to play trumpet for a jazz band in Chicago. Now he counts seals and sharpens bayonets. You and Hawkins become tent buddies. You play poker for imaginary money and argue over who gets the dry blanket. He always wins. You think it's because he cheats. You write another letter home. This one's shorter, less vivid. You say things like still doing well and food's edible. You don't mention the cold or the smell of mildew. You definitely don't mention Walter the fish knot. Historians still argue whether the Aleutian campaign mattered tactically. To you, it's more about waiting. Waiting for action. Waiting for mail. Waiting for something to change. And slowly it does. One morning you wake up and realize you haven't thought about Pearl Harbor in 3 days. Not once. You feel guilty, then grateful, then guilty again. War is weird like that. It lets you forget just long enough to remember differently. The wind picks up again. You tug your blanket tighter. Somewhere outside, a dog barks. You fall asleep, wondering if it's warning you, or just lonely too. You start the day by writing a letter. Not because you have something to say, but because the act of folding paper, pressing pen to it, makes things feel normal. You describe the mountains, the cold, the time Hawkins fell through the ice and claimed it was on purpose for dramatic effect. You leave out the thing you found yesterday. It was a boot. Again, half frozen, barely sticking out from the snow near the edge of camp. You didn't touch it, just stared. Someone else flagged it to the commanding officer. Later, you hear they found a body nearby. Nobody from your unit. A pilot maybe, or a fisherman. Doesn't matter. The cold took him, whoever he was. You try not to think about it. The days blend together. You trudge through snow, dig out supply sheds, guard cliffs that face nothing but waves. It's like babysitting fog. Hawkins starts singing to himself during patrols. Not full songs, just snippets. Sinatra mostly. Sometimes he makes up lyrics. Fly me to the moon, if it's warmer there. One night you wake to him, snoring loudly, having a full conversation with someone in his sleep. You learn not to ask questions. You get a care package, your first one. Inside a newspaper clipping from home, a pair of socks, and a chocolate bar shaped like the Statue of Liberty. The article headline says, "We will rebuild." You don't read the rest. That evening, a blizzard rolls in. You're told to stay inside. Hawkins insists on checking the perimeter anyway. You go with him. Halfway through, the wind knocks you over like a linebacker. You crawl back under the tent flap with snow in your teeth and an icicle forming in your left ear. "Worth it," Hawkins wheezes. You don't agree. You start noticing the other guys. The quiet ones. The twitchy ones. One guy, Daniel, starts eating his canned meat with a spoon he sharpened into a point. No one asks why. You hear rumors. Japan's taken more islands. Someone saw a submarine periscope just offshore. Someone else saw a seal and thought it was a periscope. That turns into a whole debate. You stay out of it. One afternoon, you get caught in a conversation with a guy named Lieberman. Used to be a mailman in Omaha. Now he guards radio towers and mutters Latin phrases in his sleep. He asks you if you think the war will ever end. You say yes. He doesn't look convinced. Historians still argue whether the Aleutian Front was truly forgotten or just inconvenient to remember. Either way, you're here, forgotten or not. There's a chaplain stationed with your unit, Father Regan. Always smells like peppermint and despair. He tells bad jokes. Occasionally leads impromptu story nights in the mess tent. You sit through one and hear a guy tell a ghost story about a Japanese soldier who got stuck in the mountains and still roams them barefoot looking for his unit. You don't sleep well after that. One morning, you and Hawkins find a snowman near the water's edge. Nobody claims it. It's wearing a helmet. Its eyes are made of shell casings. You both laugh too hard, then pretend it wasn't weird. There's a weird stillness that sets in during wartime isolation. You think too much. Not in the productive way. In the kind of way that makes you wonder if you actually died back at Pearl, and this is all some version of limbo. A week later, they pull you from rotation. No reason given. You get a half day off. You spend it watching icebergs drift slowly past the harbor. It feels like the planet itself is just barely in motion. That night, someone starts a fire in an empty oil drum. You gather around it, with a few others, warming your hands, trading jokes. Lieberman recites a poem. Hawkins sings something surprisingly beautiful. You forget for a moment where you are. The next morning, a plane arrives. That always causes a stir. It brings mail and sometimes a new guy. This time, it brings both. The new guy's name is Martinez. He's 21, baby-faced, and smells like aftershave and optimism. You envy him immediately. He asks what it's like here. Hawkins tells him, "Imagine being grounded by your dad for 1,000 years, but your dad is a blizzard, and your house might explode." Martinez laughs. He won't laugh as much later. Later that week, someone finds a seal pup tangled in barbed wire. You help free it. It bites you. You don't blame it. You keep writing letters, but you send fewer now. Not because you have less to say, just fewer ways to say it. You start writing some that you don't send. One of them is to Bishop, the old bunkmate. You write it like he's going to write back. You ask what it's like wherever he is. You tell him about the snowman. You ask if he remembers the coconut crate. You fold the letter and tuck it under your shirt. It stays there for weeks. One day, the radio flares to life with real news. Tarawa. A bloodbath. You hear the name repeated over and over like a warning. "Guess we're not stuck here forever," someone says. You wish you were. Tarawa's a dot on the map. But it's about to become the whole world. You don't even get to pack properly. Just a few hours' notice, and suddenly you're on another train. Well, technically, a troop transport, but it's a train in spirit. This time, you're going south. No one tells you much, but the name Tarawa hangs over everything, like the scent of something burned. Your boots are barely dry when you board. Hawkins is gone, transferred elsewhere. No goodbye, no handshake. One moment, he's humming Sinatra, the next, just an empty bunk, and a folded note that says, "Don't die dumb." H. You think about replying. You don't. The train rumbles on for days. You share a cabin with 3 other guys. One reads comic books upside down. Another trims his mustache with tweezers. The third one doesn't speak at all. You grow to like him the most. Somewhere near Texas, the train stops for fuel. You stretch your legs. There's a little stand selling sandwiches and postcards. You buy a sandwich. It tastes like disappointment and mayonnaise. You write a quick card. Still alive. Still traveling. Still me. You don't sign it. You don't send it. You fold it up and hide it in your boot like a secret. Eventually, you arrive at a staging base. It's hotter than you're used to, humid too, like the air is holding its breath. The jungle's closer now. Greenery with teeth. Training resumes. It's not drills anymore. It's rehearsals for chaos. You practice beach landings, barbed wire crossings, and digging foxholes in soil that fights back. They give you more gear, heavier boots, more ammo. A shovel that doubles as a weapon, which is somehow both smart and terrifying. One sergeant shows you how to shoot, reload, stab, and strip a rifle blindfolded. Another tells you that if you're within grenade range, you're already late to die. Comforting, the food's worse now. Greasier. Smells like something that used to be alive, but gave up halfway through. You eat it anyway. Letters stop coming. You write fewer, then none. You start seeing familiar faces from Pearl guys who made it through. You nod at each other, in passing no words. You're like haunted trees, recognizing a neighbor's burn marks. Then deployment day. You board a ship under cover of dusk. No lights, no music, just waves and the occasional thump of gear being loaded. Someone jokes about going to the beach. No one laughs. The sea is calm, which makes everything worse. The quiet before a storm. You try to sleep on the floor of the hold, your helmet tilted over your eyes. Someone's whispering the Lord's Prayer. Someone else is humming the Mickey Mouse Club tune. You wonder which one's got the better odds. Morning breaks with shouting. Tarawa looms ahead, a tiny speck in the ocean, ringed by coral and guarded by machine guns. The landing begins. You climb into an amphibious vehicle that smells like wet rubber and gun oil. You're squashed between legs' elbows and fear. The water gets shallower. You hear bullets pinging off metal. You taste salt on your lips. Then the ramp drops. Chaos. You sprint through waist-high water, stumbling over coral and corpses. Sand explodes beside you. Someone screams behind you, high and cut short. You make it to the beach, if you can call it that. It's more blood than sand now. You dive behind a fallen log heart, hammering lungs dragging in smoke and salt. A grenade lands 10 feet away. You don't move. You can't. It doesn't go off. You laugh. Then cry. Then shoot at something that might be a bunker or a rock. You can't tell. Hours pass, or minutes, or years. Eventually you pass out behind a crate of soggy ammo. When you wake, you're in a tent. There's an IV in your arm, and something like electricity dancing behind your eyes. A nurse with tired eyes and a clean uniform says, "You're lucky. Just shrapnel and fever." You blink. Where? Tarawa. You remember and wish you didn't. They keep you there for 3 weeks. You hallucinate a conversation with your mother. She forgives you for something you never told her. You also dream about Bishop. He asks if you ever mailed that letter. You wake up sobbing. The fever breaks. They ship you out before you're fully ready, but they need the bed. On the boat back, you stare at the ocean and try not to picture it red. A fellow soldier offers you gum. You take it. It tastes like nothing. He says, "You ever think about what happens after this?" You nod. "Yeah." "What then?" You look at the horizon. I stop. He laughs softly. "You think they'll let us?" Historians still debate whether Tarawa was worth the cost, whether the strategic gain justified the carnage. You don't care. All you remember is the sound of boots in water and the click of a grenade that didn't explode. That's enough history for one man. Your welcome back party is a mildew-smelling cot in a field hospital outside Guadalcanal. You're not even supposed to be here. Logistics hiccup, they say. But they hand you a rifle and assign you a bunk anyway. Classic Army efficiency. The jungle hums constantly, not pleasantly, not like a lullaby. It hums like a machine that's about to break down. Frogs bark. Mosquitoes dive bomb your neck. Something rustles just beyond your line of sight every 3 minutes. You get introduced to jungle rot on day 2. It starts as a warm itch between your toes and ends in horror. Your sergeant tells you the best cure is punching your own foot until it stops hurting. Not comforting, not helpful. You meet your new squad, all at various stages of decay. One guy, York, keeps an actual lizard in his canteen as a pet. Another has written, "I am okay," on his helmet in white paint. He's clearly not okay. The first night, it rains. Not sprinkles, not a drizzle. Full biblical downpour. Your blanket gets soaked through. Your socks become sponges. The latrine floods. You wake up floating slightly. The routine here is different. Less action, more sickness. Patrols where no one talks. Meals that look like wet paper towels. You trade your chocolate rations for dry socks. Best deal you've ever made. Every evening you write a V-mail. It's like a regular letter, but tiny, censored, sanitized. You lie gently. Say you're healthy. Say morale is high. Say you're proud to serve. You never mention the guy who got lost for 2 days and came back speaking in nursery rhymes. You definitely don't mention what York's lizard did to your toothbrush. One afternoon, during latrine duty, you find a carved wooden box buried behind the mess tent. Inside, nothing. Just air. You close it quickly. Some things in this jungle are best left unopened. Your days blur together. You spend hours polishing boots that will be full of mud in 10 minutes. You learn that it's possible to sweat while sitting still. And then there's the bugs. The mosquitoes here are smart, organized, coordinated. They seem to have schedules. One gets you right behind the ear every morning at 0500. You name him Marvin. There's also the ants, big enough to vote. You once saw one carry off half a cracker. You didn't stop him. You respected the hustle. The nights are the worst. Not just because of the damp or the noise, but because your brain fills the dark with every memory you've tried to bury. Pearl Harbor, Tarawa, that sealed letter still tucked in your duffel. You start dreaming about marching through snow again. Only now it's jungle vines wrapping around your boots instead of frost. you get rotated into the perimeter watch team. It means walking endless loops through thick underbrush swatting vines and trying not to trip on roots. Occasionally you find something. Sometimes it's just a rusted can. Once it's a tooth. You don't ask. You make a game of spotting shapes in the foliage. Hawkins would have loved it. You imagine telling him, "Look, a vine shaped like a duck wearing a hat." He'd say, "That's just a root. You're losing it." You'd both laugh. You don't laugh now. One afternoon, someone spots a parachute caught in a tree. It's been there a while, faded white, torn at the edges. No body. Just the harness, dangling like some grim decoration. A debate breaks out. Was it ours or theirs? You quietly hope it was nobody's. Mail arrives once a week, but it rarely makes sense. You get a letter dated 2 months ago from someone named Ellie. You don't remember who Ellie is. Could be a cousin. Could be a typo. You write back anyway. "Dear Ellie, I hope you are well. The trees here whisper, but it's probably nothing. Yours, Jay." Historians still argue whether Guadalcanal marked the true turning point in the Pacific. For you, it just marked another chapter of waiting to go somewhere worse. Your captain starts posting random quotes in the mess tent. Things like victory is measured in inches and mud is the enemy's equalizer. Someone rewrites them overnight into things like sleep is for cowards and don't trust the lizard. The jungle never ends. You start to think maybe the whole world is green and buzzing and damp, and the concept of dry is a lie invented by parents. Then one morning, out of nowhere, the orders come down. You're shipping out again. No details. Just pack. Go. Now. You stare at the paper. You sit on your bunk. You think about that wooden box you found. You almost go dig it up again just to see if it ever had anything in it. But you don't. Instead, you pack the usual socks, canteen harmonica, the letter to Bishop. You fold it one more time just to give your fingers something to do. As you board the truck, someone shouts, "Where to now?" No one answers. You ride in silence. Boots against metal floor engine rattling beneath you. Tarawa was blood. Guadalcanal was mildew. You wonder what flavor the next stop will be. Your next flavor turns out to be metallic. Not blood, though there'll be some of that, but metal, from rations, from helmets, from the persistent taste of stress. You arrive at your new post under a stuttering fan-belt sky, where even the trees seem exhausted. You're stationed in New Guinea now. Hotter than Guadalcanal. Wetter, too. Everything here sweats. Trees, rifles, even shadows. The humidity is so thick, it feels like your skin is wearing a second skin. And that second skin is crying. The barracks are elevated off the ground, mostly to discourage snakes. Doesn't always work. You hear stories about someone who woke up with one curled inside their boot. No one wears boots without shaking them out now. You've been assigned to a logistics team, which sounds safe. It isn't. You run supplies to forward camps, ammunition bandages, meat in cans shaped like misery. Every trip takes you through terrain that makes no sense. The maps show clear paths. The jungle disagrees. You get lost twice. Once with a guy named Roselli who won't stop talking about his dog back home. The second time alone. That's when the heat really gets you. You see a tree smile. You see your mother pouring iced tea into a helmet. You sit down and have a long chat with a bush. It doesn't go well. Eventually, someone finds you. No one laughs. They just hand you water and move on. Your reward. More cans of meat. It tastes like regret. You don't ask what animal it's from. You're not sure it's from an animal at all. One label says, meat type 2. Type the 2. What was type wine? You never find out. Roselli, for some reason, loves the stuff. Tastes like Brooklyn, he says. You question his childhood silently. There's a weird rhythm to this part of the war. Long days of hauling and sweating, followed by sudden bursts of panic. One day, a single sniper stalls an entire convoy. You hide in a ditch for 5 hours, counting ants, as bullets flick through the trees like angry whispers. Another day, someone hears a rustle and tosses a grenade. It hits a tree and rolls back toward the group. You all leap into the mud. The grenade doesn't go off. Everyone laughs too hard. Then everyone stops laughing at the same time. Back at camp, a guy builds a makeshift theater out of crates. He sets up a bed sheet and shows a newsreel with a hand-cranked projector. It's scratchy, full of static, and somehow shows the Pope. No one knows why. You clap anyway. The next night, someone tries to reenact a scene from Casablanca using sock puppets. You laugh until you cough. There's a game some of the guys play. They call it fake rations. You take one, can peel the label off, and make someone eat it without knowing what it is. Sometimes it's beans. Sometimes it's peaches. Once it's cigarette butts and gravy. That one ends the game for a while. You write another V-mail, this one to no one. Just still here. Still odd. Mosquitoes now ask politely before biting. You sign it General Confusion. Your captain starts carrying a chicken around. Says it's for morale. Names it Roosevelt. Roosevelt poops on everything. You still salute him just in case. One day, during a resupply run, you pass by a group of local villagers who have tied empty ration tins together into wind chimes. The sound they make is haunting, like metallic ghosts, laughing in the breeze. You stare at them longer than you should. One old woman gives you a flower. You put it in your helmet. It wilts by noon. There's also a radio. Big, bulky wheezing, like an old smoker. It plays crackly swing music and military updates. Sometimes you hear Roosevelt's voice. Sometimes it's just static. Once it plays something that sounds like polka. You're not sure if it was a signal or a cry for help. Historians still argue whether the jungle campaigns were underreported or just unreadable. You'd argue they were like living inside someone else's fever dream with guns. You keep seeing things. Or maybe you don't. A shape behind the trees. A shadow that moves the wrong way. A noise that sounds like breathing, but too wet, too slow. You ask Roselli if he hears it. He says, "Buddy, I've been hearing jazz in the vines since Tuesday." At night, you start keeping a diary in your head. Not on paper, just in case. You tell it about the man who sings lullabies to his bullets, about the guy who claims the mosquitoes are organized, about the moment you realized you've stopped counting days. One morning, you wake up with an eye infection. The medic says it's normal. You're not sure that word means what he thinks it means. He gives you drops that smell like mint and vinegar. Your vision returns in one eye. The other still sees funny colors. You call it jungle vision. You write another unsent letter to Bishop. Dear B, this place is wet in ways physics doesn't explain. I miss dry. I miss socks. I hope your sky is normal where you are. By now, you've seen every kind of breakdown. One guy starts wearing leaves as clothes. Another refuses to speak English and communicates only in semaphore. You start to wonder if you're the weird one for still brushing your teeth. Then one day, unexpectedly, you're pulled from rotation again. You think maybe they've finally found your paperwork and realized you're still listed as possibly convalescing from the fever. But no, you're being moved again, this time west. New orders, new unit, new front. You pack slowly. You stare at Roosevelt the chicken. He pecks your boot once and wanders off. You say goodbye to Roselli. He doesn't look up, just says, "Don't let the jungle win." You nod, because you think it already has. You arrive at your next stop with a cough that won't quit and a fever that makes your bones hum. It's not dramatic, not like shrapnel or bayonet wounds. It's just the flu. The most average, annoying kind. And it knocks you flatter than any bullet ever did. The Pacific doesn't care about your dignity. You're supposed to be supporting operations around Tarawa's aftermath, maybe even pushing toward Kwajalein. Instead, you're stuck in a makeshift infirmary, curled up on a cot that smells like bleach and feet surrounded by men groaning in symphony. There's a nurse who talks too loudly and a doctor who talks too softly. You never catch either of their names. The nurse calls everyone champ. The doctor just stares into your eyes with his tiny flashlight and says, You sweat through 2 shirts before lunch. Someone across from you has malaria. He's convinced you're a Russian spy. You don't correct him. Honestly, it's nice to be called something new. The days blur into a cycle of broth, aspirin, sleep, and very vivid hallucinations. You dream you're back in Hawaii, sipping coconut milk through a straw made of bullets. You dream that Bishop is laughing at you from a hammock. You dream that Roosevelt the chicken has taken command of your unit and insists everyone salute with their left foot. The fever breaks. Then it comes back. Then it breaks again, this time for real. You wake up on a Thursday. You think feeling mostly human. There's toast beside your cot. It's soggy. You eat it anyway. Best toast you've ever had. Outside, the unit is moving on. You can hear trucks loading up. A voice shouts orders. The smell of diesel and wet canvas seeps into the room like a visitor who's not planning to leave. You're cleared for duty, sort of. Not combat yet. You're put on inventory. You count crates. You label boxes. You stack things that probably don't need stacking. One crate is just full of combs. Another has nothing but helmets that are all size small. You find that oddly sad. You talk to the quartermaster. His name's Groves. He's got a mustache that seems to operate independently from his face and a strange affection for sardines. He once tried to barter a tin for a pair of socks. The man has dreams. Groves tells you he once mislabeled a crate of dynamite as library books. You ask what happened. He shrugs. No complaints so far. You spend a week in that warehouse. It's not glamorous. It's not heroic. But for the first time in months, you're not being shot at, rained on, or bit by anything that needs an entomologist. One afternoon, you find a single playing card on the floor. The ace of spades. You stare at it for a long time. Someone tells you it's bad luck. Someone else tells you it's good luck. You keep it either way. Put it in your boot next to the letter to Bishop. You write another letter. This one you actually send. It's to your sister. You say something vague, feeling better. Back on my feet. Jungle behind me for now. You don't mention that your feet are now shaped slightly different thanks to the trench rot, or that you have dreams where socks talk. Historians still argue whether soldiers who got sick were treated with more sympathy or suspicion. You'd say neither. You were just forgotten for a little while, shelved, like misfiled paperwork with a heartbeat. Then orders come again. They always do. This time Kwajalein. More water, more sand, more guns. You travel by ship again. A smaller one this time, and far less forgiving. It rocks hard enough to send mess trays flying and makes the walls groan like they're tired of holding you up. Your bunk is a metal rack above the boiler room. It smells like socks and steam, and whatever sadness looks like when it's wet. On deck, you meet a guy named Tennyson. Yes, like the poet. No, he's never read poetry. He plays harmonica badly and tells long stories about a girl named Wendy who may or may not exist. You don't care. You let the stories wash over you like warm soup. Somewhere in the night, you pass an island that no one can name. You swear you see a fire on it. The officer says it's a reflection of Venus. You're not convinced. Eventually, you arrive at Kwajalein. The sky's the wrong shade of gray, and the beach looks like it's been stomped on by a giant. Rubble bunkers, twisted metal. It smells like gunpowder and mold. You don't land with the first wave. Your job now is to assist the engineers clearing debris, marking safe paths, helping set up field radio towers that hum with static and hope. You step on something soft once. Don't look. You've learned. Tennyson finds a stack of Japanese propaganda leaflets and reads them in an exaggerated British accent. The American dogs will drown in their own cowardice, he says, bowing low. You both laugh too hard, then stop. Always the same rhythm. At night, you play cards with the engineers. One of them cheats openly. Another cries quietly when no one's looking. You all pretend not to notice either one. In the mess tent, someone has drawn a giant mural on the wall. It's a cartoon chicken Roosevelt firing a bazooka while riding a jeep. Beneath it, "Welcome to Paradise." You stare at it for a long time. A few days later, a rumor spreads. You're rotating out again. You don't believe it at first, but then it's confirmed. Your unit is being folded into a new operation, something big, something called Philippines. The word makes your stomach clench, and not from the flu this time. You don't know what's waiting there. But you do know this. You're not the same guy who got off that train near the Aleutians. And that guy, he wouldn't have made it this far. You hit the Philippines like a wave that forgot it was ever water-tired, broken full of unintended momentum. The place is green in that wild, overgrown way, like it doesn't realize it's been bombed half to hell. Trees regrow around craters. Birds nest in the wreckage of tanks. Nature has no loyalty. You're dropped into Luzon, not exactly the red carpet. The landing zone's half mud, half minefield, and smells like metal ash and mangoes rotting in the heat. You think about how just weeks ago you were sorting helmets in a warehouse and arguing about canned meat flavors. Now you're crouched behind a tree that's still bleeding sap from last night's artillery. They give you a map. It looks like someone spilled ink over a crossword puzzle. Your squad leader circles an area and says, "This is where we don't die." You appreciate the optimism. It's humid again. Like always, you've come to accept that if you're not sweating, you're either asleep or something is medically wrong. Your boots squish. Your socks squish louder. Your job now, messages. Running point-to-point notes from one company to another, since the radios are about as reliable as a cardboard submarine. You're what they call a runner, which sounds heroic, but mostly involves dodging bullets and learning which trees are secretly full of hornets. The first few days are a blur. You see more than you process. Buildings missing walls. Dogs with nowhere to go. A boy selling bananas near a smoldering tank. You trade a chocolate bar for one. It's warm. It tastes like dust. You eat it anyway. You start writing V-mail again. They're shorter now. Mostly weather updates and cryptic jokes. Still vertical. Mosquitoes forming political parties. We'll update soon. You sign it. J. Just J now. That's all that fits. There's a guy in your unit who brings a ukulele on patrol. He plays one song over and over. 5 foot 2 eyes of blue. You hate it. You also secretly hum it when no one's around. At one checkpoint, you run into someone who swears he remembers you from Pearl. You don't recognize him. He could be right. He could be making it up. Doesn't matter. You nod. You shake his hand. He's missing a finger. You walk. You run. You crawl. You deliver notes with handwriting so messy they might be grocery lists. You learn to read tone more than words. If the sergeant's frowning, run faster. If he's quiet, bring ammo. If he's humming, duck. One night, you camp near a mangled jeep. It's become a landmark, the sleeping dragon, someone calls it. You sit beside it and listen to someone read poetry out of a torn book. You don't catch the author. You just remember the last line. Even the sun must rest eventually. You sleep better that night. Not good. Just better. The next day, a sniper hits a tree 6 inches from your head. You don't move for 10 minutes. When you finally breathe, it feels like your lungs are wrapped in steel. Later, you meet a kid named Mendez. He's 17. His boots are too big. His helmet's too small. He tells you he lied about his age to enlist. You believe him. He offers you a cigarette. You take it. You teach Mendez how to tie off bandages without using his teeth. He teaches you how to whistle like a bird. You both agree not to mention it again. At base, someone receives a radio broadcast, Tokyo Rose. Her voice is smooth, hypnotic. She says, "American boys, why die so far from home?" Someone throws a rock at the radio. It keeps playing. Historians still argue whether Tokyo Rose was propaganda or performance. You just remember the way her voice settled into your spine like a cold hand. The rain returns. Heavy. Relentless. It turns trenches into bathtubs and foxholes into swimming pools. You learn to sleep, sitting up, knees drawn to your chest, water lapping at your boots. You dream of dry socks. You dream of sidewalks. You dream of Bishop again, this time sitting on the hood of the sleeping dragon, holding your old comb and smiling like nothing ever happened. You wake up with a fever. Again, the medic tells you it's just Philippine flu, like it's on the brochure. Welcome to Luzon. Come for the beaches, stay for the dysentery. You recover slowly. You lose 10 pounds and your sense of taste. You don't miss either. Then something strange happens. You start getting letters. 5 in one day. Backlogged, maybe. Some from your sister. 1 from someone named Ellie. Again, still no idea who she is. And 1 from Groves, the mustached quartermaster. It just says, still alive. Still sardines. P.S. Roosevelt escaped. You laugh out loud. People stare. You don't care. You write back. Tell Roosevelt I salute him. Tell the sardines I'm not mad, just disappointed. A week later, your unit is sent forward closer to Manila. You pass through towns where every window is broken, but some still have curtains. You see a piano half buried in rubble. Someone scrawled, "Play me," on the lid in charcoal. Mendez tries. It only plays 3 notes, all of them wrong. That night, he shows you a photo of his dog. You show him the ace of spades from your boot. Neither of you explains why. You don't need to. You move on the next morning. Past the piano. Past the dragon. Past another cratered road where banana trees try to bloom anyway. The Philippines isn't done with you yet. You've been living out of your pack so long, it now qualifies as your legal address. Your uniform has taken on the scent of scorched jungle wet leather and something vaguely resembling fish. No one complains. Everyone smells the same now. As you push deeper toward Manila, the war begins to take on a strange rhythm. Long stretches of anticipation wrapped around sudden bursts of chaos. It's like a heartbeat that stutters just when you think you know the tempo. You pass bombed-out villages where chickens rule the streets and posters still hang half-ripped from walls. One reads, "Buy war bonds," and has a smiling man holding a baby. The baby's face has been eaten away by mildew. The man still smiles. At one outpost, you're assigned to help man the comm station. It's mostly shortwave radio and wires held together by hope and chewing gum. Your job is to monitor traffic and shout, when anything comes through that sounds like we're being overrun, which is rarer than you'd think. Not because it doesn't happen, just because radios work about as well as psychic predictions. When you're not on comms, you help catalog incoming mail, which means you now get to read other people's letters accidentally on purpose. Love letters, recipes. One guy gets a drawing of his family's new washing machine. Another receives a V-mail simply titled, "Are you eating enough?" You hope he isn't. The food here isn't worth defending, but there are comforts. There's a new poster in the mess tent. Rita Hayworth again. Same smile, same red lips. Someone's drawn a helmet on her and taped a speech bubble that says, "Victory is sexy." The mess tent itself is chaos. Imagine 100 sweaty soldiers arguing over the last recognizable sausage link, while a phonograph in the corner tries to play Benny Goodman through a needle the width of a nail. You sit beside a guy named Crenshaw. He has a tattoo of a dancing squirrel and a firm belief that the war will end in exactly 48 days. He never explains why. You don't ask. One night, you hear a radio broadcast about a Hollywood film being made about the war. They're already scripting it, already casting it. You look down at your dirt-encrusted boots and wonder who gets to play you. Spoiler, it won't be Clark Gable. The next morning, your unit pushes through a ruined theater. Real one, not metaphorical. Marquee still up. Half reads Gone with the Wind. The other half just says go. You take it as a sign of what you're not sure. You pass a mirror in the wreckage. Not a full one, just a shard propped up in the frame of an old vanity. You see yourself. Not clearly, not fully, but enough. The dirt, the lines under your eyes, the way your helmet doesn't quite sit right anymore. You stare, then you keep walking. Back at the camp, Crenshaw finds a stack of old pin-up calendars. Most are water-damaged, warped, stained. But 1 month April still looks perfect. He tapes it above his cot like it's a shrine. You don't ask what year it's from. It doesn't matter. You receive another V-mail. This one's from Ellie again. The mystery woman. Hope the stars are bright where you are, it says. You stare at the line longer than you should. That night you do look up. The stars aren't bright, but they're there. And that's something. Then come the pamphlets, dropped from planes. Japanese propaganda printed on thin rice paper and fluttering down like morbid confetti. The war is lost, one reads. Your family forgets you, another claims. Someone collects them and builds paper airplanes. You watch them sail over foxholes and think honestly good aerodynamics. Historians still debate whether the leaflets worked, if they broke morale or hardened it. For you, they're just another thing to step on. In one village, you meet locals who've been hiding in tunnels. Whole families. Pale, from lack of sun eyes, wide voices soft. One old man gives you a mango. It's perfectly ripe. You eat it slowly. Juice drips down your wrist. For 10 seconds, it's the only thing in the world. Then the next shell lands and you're back in it. A few days later, your unit captures a bunker. Inside, canned food ammo and a crate of Japanese leaflets they never got a chance to drop. You read one aloud. Your girlfriend marries someone else while you're away. Crenshaw laughs. Joke's on them. I never had one. You find a phonograph too. Japanese swing music. Someone cranks it up. You dance. Badly. Everyone cheers. For a moment, war takes a nap. Then come the kamikaze attacks. You're stationed near the shore when the first one hits. Not your position, but close enough to feel it. The sound is like a banshee caught in an engine. The explosion isn't the worst part, it's the silence afterward. Everyone looks up, waiting for the next one. It comes. Then another. You scramble duck swear. A plane clips a tree and crashes into a fuel depot half a mile away. The sky goes orange. It rains ash for an hour. Someone mutters, "They ain't trying to win anymore. They're trying to drag us under with them." You can't argue. One night, Crenshaw asks what you'll do when it's over. You say, "Sleep." For a week. He nods. "I'm gonna eat an entire pie. Then marry a waitress." In that order. You promise to hold him to it. He smiles. You better live long enough to try. You're starting to recognize the sound of death before it happens. That sharp intake of air. The screech of metal too close too fast. The silence just before something explodes. In the Philippines, you get used to it. But that doesn't mean it gets easier. You're reassigned to a naval support post. Just for a while, they say. You're helping inspect transport ships coming in from the east, some full of gear, some full of ghosts. One morning, a destroyer rolls into port, looking mostly intact. You board it with two others for inspection. The deck is eerily quiet. No shouting, no running boots. Just the creak of metal and the soft lap of water against the hull. Inside the galley, plates are still set on the table. No crew, no blood, just gone. You walk through the lower decks, flashlight beam, jittering across pipes and walls. It's like the ship was abandoned mid-sentence. A pot still simmering. A toothbrush still wet. You half expect someone to pop around the corner and ask if you want coffee. You find one thing, a single life jacket, carefully folded and placed on a bunk. That's it. You step off the ship without saying anything. Later, someone writes "Ghost Boat" on the manifest. No one brings it up again. That same week, the kamikaze attacks ramp up. You spot the first one from the shore. Small plane, fast too fast. It dives toward a freighter like a wasp with a death wish. The freighter fires, misses. The plane hits. The whole harbor shakes. The next one clips a watchtower. You find pieces of it scattered in a nearby coconut grove. The pilot's scarf hangs from a tree branch like a flag. Historians still argue whether the kamikaze attacks were strategically effective or just a desperate horror show. From the ground, they feel like both. You help pull a man from the wreckage of a downed ship. His leg is broken in 3 places. His eyes are wide open, but he's not looking at anything. You sit with him until the medic arrives. He never blinks. There's a woman in the field hospital now. Filipina nurse, speaks 4 languages, and doesn't have time for nonsense. She hands you a bandage one day, without asking what it's for. You like her instantly. You never catch her name. In your downtime, you start sketching again. Nothing fancy, just lines on spare paper. Helmets. Clouds. Crenshaw's dancing squirrel tattoo. You find it easier than writing, though you do keep writing Bishop. Letter number 9 now. This one starts, I think the war wants a do-over. Crenshaw builds a scarecrow out of spare uniforms and labels it Lieutenant Maybe. He says it keeps the crows away and gives bad orders in its sleep. You salute it anyway. One night, someone gets a hold of a projector. You gather on the beach and watch a newsreel projected onto a sail. Grainy footage of New York parade's factory workers welding movie stars promoting bonds. Then a clip of a kamikaze hit. Real footage. Too real. The crowd goes silent. The ocean behind you whispers things you'd rather not hear. You meet a guy named Ortiz. He's quiet but sharp. Used to be an engineer. Now he's stationed with you doing structural checks on incoming ships. He says he's hoping to go home soon. Finish school, marry his high school sweetheart. You ask if she's written lately. He pauses. She married my cousin. You wince. Ouch. He shrugs. It's war. Everyone's marrying someone. That night, you and Ortiz trade watch duty. You take the early shift. While you pace the perimeter, the wind picks up. It smells like salt and engine oil. You hear a plane in the distance. For a second, your heart leaps. Then it passes. Friendly or lucky, you start seeing things again. Not visions, just weirdness. A line of boots with no feet. A mirror on a tree. Someone has carved the word home into the side of a fuel drum. You stare at it a while. There's a new guy in camp who swears he saw a boat drifting offshore with a single dog on board. Just a dog. No crew. No barking. Just watching. You believe him. You find a torn Japanese diary in a sunken transport. You can't read it, but someone translates a page for you. It says, I miss the sound of rice cooking. You sit with that for a long time. Propaganda leaflets keep falling like weird paper snow. The emperor sees all. America will forget you. Your victory is a lie. Crenshaw collects them, folds them into origami cranes, and floats them in his coffee. Says it makes the bitterness poetic. There's a kind of joke that spreads through the ranks, dry sarcastic, mostly muttered at dusk. If I survive this, I'm gonna run for office. If I survive this, I'll open a bakery. If I survive this, I'll never touch canned meat again. You nod, but you don't say yours out loud because you're not sure anymore what you want. One morning during inventory, you find a crate marked Special. Inside, pin-up posters, old swing records, boxes of saltwater taffy. Clearly meant for morale. You and Ortiz divvy it up. He takes the records. You take the candy. Crenshaw tapes a poster of Betty Grable to his helmet. The next day, Ortiz is gone. Not dead, just reassigned. Quietly. No goodbye. Just not there anymore. You find a folded note under your cot. It just says, thanks for the jokes. You were better company than most. Oh, you stare at it until the ink blurs. The kamikaze planes don't stop. But you get better at spotting them, listening for them, timing the gaps between engines. You become an unwilling expert in the math of mayhem. Then finally, the whisper comes down the line. The next stop isn't here. It's further, harder. A name starts floating around Okinawa. You fold Ortiz's note and place it beside Bishop's letter and the ace of spades. You pack your gear slowly, methodically, carefully. You don't say anything to Crenshaw. He doesn't say anything either. You just nod. Because what else is there? They send you to Okinawa in a boat that smells like fear and mildew. You board in the dark. No talking. Just the creak of boots and the low murmur of seasick prayers. A guy pukes over the side before the engines even start. You pat his back. He thanks you and throws up again. The water's rough, real rough. Waves slap the hull like they're trying to make a point. You huddle below deck with a few others, trading sips of warm coffee and staring at your boots like they might offer answers. You don't sleep. No one does. You arrive under gray skies. The clouds hang so low you could bite them. And then the shelling starts. Okinawa isn't a landing. It's a grinding. A months-long test to see how much noise a person can take before they stop being a person. Your job: clearing paths, forward observation, sometimes just standing where no one else will. Day 1. Your ears ring so hard you think you've been shot. Turns out it's just a nearby blast. You're fine, mostly. Your teeth rattle for hours. There's a goat here. Nobody knows where it came from, but someone's named it Lieutenant Flapjack. It wears a pair of aviator sunglasses someone found in a busted crate. It eats ration tins. It follows a private named Morrison like a shadow. You salute it. Everyone does. Lieutenant Flapjack becomes the unofficial mascot. One day, it wanders into a dugout right before a mortar hits the next one over. Everyone decides it's lucky. The goat just burps. Between shellings you dig. Trenches, foxholes, graves. No one calls them what they are. You just dig. You help pull a man out of the mud. He's alive. Barely. He looks up at you and says, "I thought this was the easy island." You don't laugh. Not this time. Okinawa is endless gray. Ash in the air. Mud in your boots. Screams in the distance that might be yours. You take to carrying peppermint gum in your pocket. Someone sent it in a care package. You pop one piece every morning like it's armor. It's not. At night, the rain plays its own percussion against your helmet. Tap, tap, tap. Like it's counting down something. You write fewer letters, fewer words. One V-mail just says, "Still here." Dirtier. Fewer teeth in camp, not sure why. J. You fold it. Send it. Regret it. One evening, after the shelling dies down, someone finds a piano in a wrecked farmhouse. Miraculously intact. One key sticks. You gather around. Someone plays chopsticks. It's terrible. It's beautiful. The war pauses for 5 minutes, then picks right back up. One morning, you wake to find that your unit has shifted in the night. You slept through the order. You're now technically alone. You spend 4 hours wandering through rubble before a familiar voice yells your name. Crenshaw. He's covered in soot, carrying a box labeled "Do Not Open" that he definitely opened. Inside fireworks. Japanese ones. He's been saving them for the end of the world. You tell him not to do anything stupid. He winks. That's literally all I do. You pass a pile of helmets. You don't count them. You pass a trench someone tried to turn into a chapel. Cross made of bayonets. Psalms scrawled in charcoal. There's a tin can holding wilted wildflowers. You light a match and leave it there. Historians still argue whether Okinawa was the battle that finally broke Japan or just the one that broke everyone. You don't know. You only know that the goat is now wearing a scarf, and someone has painted Flapjack 2024 on a burned-out tank. You hear rumors about something big, a bomb, something new. You don't believe it. You've seen too much of the old stuff. What's left to invent? Then it happens. Not here. Far away. But you hear it in the static of a radio and the sudden stillness of officers. They don't explain. They just look different. The days grow quieter. Not peaceful. Just waiting. One night, Crenshaw walks up, holding a crate of the Japanese fireworks. You sit in a crater, and he sets them off one by one. Red, blue, gold. The sky cracks with color. No one says a word. Lieutenant Flapjack bleats once like approval, and for 10 seconds, Okinawa isn't hell. It's just sky. The fireworks don't mean it's over. They just mean something shifted. You can feel it in the way people walk slower now. Quieter. As if the air itself is exhaling for the first time in years. A few days after Flapjack's One Goat Light Show, you're ordered to pack up. Okinawa isn't exactly won, but the enemy's scattered, the shelling has slowed, and the skies are just empty enough to make you uncomfortable. It's the silence that gets you more than the noise ever did. Your boots are falling apart. You tape them up with whatever you can find, mostly strips of uniform sleeves and wet bandages. No one comments. Everyone's falling apart. Crenshaw gives you one of his extra socks, his good ones. He says, you thank him like he gave you gold. He shrugs like it's nothing. Maybe it is. Or maybe he knows he won't need them where you're going. Your new assignment is logistics, again, because apparently you're great at lifting boxes and not getting shot, two very underrated skills. This time, you're stationed near a supply depot that smells like wet cardboard and burnt toast. They hand you a clipboard, a pencil, and a cup of something they call coffee, but you suspect is just boiled shoe polish. Your main job is to check incoming shipments, food, bandages, crates of morphine. Occasionally, something weird shows up. One day, it's a case of sailor uniforms, 3 sizes too small. Another day, it's a crate of kazoos. You stare at it for a full minute before closing the lid again. Sometimes the paperwork makes sense. Sometimes it's gibberish. Once you see a form signed by Private Elvis Presley, you raise an eyebrow. The corporal shrugs. Could be real. Could be someone bored. Doesn't matter. He's assigned to socks. You don't argue. One afternoon, while doing inventory near the docks, you spot a familiar figure limping toward you. MacArthur. It's surreal. He looks like a magazine cover pressed uniform aviators, the kind of pose someone practices in a mirror. He's surrounded by staff photographers, a slight breeze that somehow only affects his cape. He walks like he owns the place. Someone whispers, "He's back." You think he never really left. Historians still argue whether his return to the Philippines was a tactical necessity or a PR campaign. Doesn't matter. He's here, standing tall on the same land where so many fell flat. Crenshaw mutters, "If I ever walk like that, punch me." You promise you will. A ceremony follows. Cameras click. Flags wave. A speech is made. You only catch part of it, something about victory and freedom and honor. You're too focused on your socks. They're soaked again. You wring them out, while a 4-star general reclaims the Pacific. Later, Crenshaw draws a caricature of MacArthur into the dust with his boot. He gives him goat legs. Lieutenant Flapjack sniffs it and pees on the drawing. History made history erased. You receive a package that night from someone named Ellie again. This time, it's a tiny jar of jam, wrapped in newspaper. You have no idea how it got through. You open it, smell it. Strawberry. You don't eat it. You just hold it. You also get another letter from Hawkins, the guy from the Aleutians. Somehow, it made its way to you through 6 different units, and a miracle. His handwriting is sloppy, but the message is clear. Still kicking. Still weird. Heard about Flapjack? I'm not even surprised. You laugh out loud. Someone near you mutters, "Careful, that's how it starts." The camp starts to relax, not fully, but a little. Poker games come back. Someone builds a hammock out of ration tape and blind optimism. You try it. It holds. Barely. Someone else finds a basketball. No hoop, no court, just the ball. You pass it around like it's sacred. Crenshaw throws it and misses by a mile. You both agree he was aiming for Guam. There's a rumor, just a whisper, but enough to catch Japan might surrender. People react in strange ways. Some cheer, some scoff, some nod like they knew it all along. You feel something twist in your gut. Not relief, not fear, just hesitation. Because what happens after you've spent so long being someone you weren't before the war? What do you go back to? That night, a storm rolls in. Sudden, loud, biblical. You and Crenshaw huddle under a tarp, soaked to the bone, eating cold beans with a spoon made from a bent nail. Crenshaw says, "If this is what peacetime looks like, I'm rethinking things." You tell him, "I think peace still owes us a proper introduction." When the storm passes, the sky clears so completely it feels fake. The stars are sharper, brighter, like they're trying to tell you something important, but you don't quite speak their language. You write a letter to Bishop. You don't know why. You just do. You tell him about the storm, the beans, MacArthur's perfect cape, The jam jar. You sign it simply. If we make it through, you owe me a drink. J. Then you pack your gear again. No one says the word Okinawa anymore. Now they're whispering something else. Hiroshima. You don't hear the word Hiroshima all at once. It trickles through the ranks, like spilled coffee, slow sticky, leaving a weird aftertaste. It starts with a radio crackle, a newsreader's voice, oddly formal, like he's announcing the winner of a county fair. A single bomb has destroyed an entire city, he says. The city of Hiroshima. Someone laughs short and confused. Must be a mistake. One bomb. Another says, they're exaggerating. Then someone whispers, they finally used it. You don't ask what it is. You know. You hear more over the next few days, bits and pieces. Atomic. Radiation. Gone. The words bounce around camp like stones in a bucket. No one can catch them. No one wants to. You're not sure how to feel. Relieved. Horrified. Curious. You feel numb until someone hands you a photo. Grainy. Black and white. A city flattened like someone stomped on it with the foot of God. Hiroshima is gone. Not damaged. Not captured. Gone. Crenshaw stares at the photo for a long time. Then he folds it and sticks it in his pocket. Doesn't say a word. That night, someone brings out a bottle of something alcohol of uncertain origin. Tastes like engine fluid and vinegar. You all drink anyway. You toast to the end. You don't believe it's real. The wars had false endings before. You sleep beside your boots just in case. And then, Nagasaki. Another bomb. Another city. Another silence. No more debate now. The air in camp changes. Tighter. Heavier. Even the goat stops bleeding. You're moved again, but not far. Just to a different post, closer to the shoreline. Your job now is waiting. For word. For surrender. For anything that makes sense. You patrol a beach that smells like sulfur and kelp. You collect cigarette butts and stack crates that haven't been opened in weeks. You scratch a face into a coconut and name it General Macadamia. He becomes your commanding officer for the afternoon. He's very chill. Then comes the whisper. One word: surrender. Not shouted. Not celebrated. Just passed from tent to tent like a secret you don't want to jinx. You don't believe it until you see an officer cry. You don't believe it until Crenshaw says, "That's it then," and actually means it. You don't believe it until someone raises a flag on a broken radio tower and no one shoots it down. Historians still argue whether the bombs were necessary, whether they saved lives or crossed a line. You're not a historian. You're just tired. Orders shift again. You're to help coordinate the first waves of American personnel entering Japanese-held territories, some now occupied, some abandoned. You get on a transport with a small team. It's quiet. The ocean feels different. Less like an enemy. More like a path. The port you land at is subdued. Not empty. Just stunned. You step off the boat and expect to feel something. Anger. Triumph. Guilt. All you feel is the breeze. A group of locals stands nearby. They don't run. They don't smile. They just watch. You nod. One of them nods back. You help set up supply lines and shelters. You unload crates of food, medical supplies, clothing. You give a child a chocolate bar. He takes it, stares at it, then breaks it in half and hands the other piece to his sister. You don't know what to say. That night you sit with Crenshaw on a seawall. No drinks. No celebration. Just the ocean and the moon and the echo of something big ending. He asks, "So what now?" You don't answer, because you don't know. You just stare at your hands, at your boots, at the faint line where your dog tags used to hang. Then you say, "I think I'm going to keep the goat." Crenshaw chuckles. Of course you are. The next day, someone sets up a phonograph in the mess tent. The needles scratch, the speaker buzzes, but the music is real. Swing, crooners, big bands. You close your eyes and let it wash over you. A guy in the corner starts dancing with himself badly. Another joins in, then another. Soon, half the tent's trying to remember how legs work when they're not running from mortars. You find yourself smiling. Not forced, not ironic, real. Even the goat seems to approve. You write one last letter to Bishop. It's over. I think. I hope. I still carry your letter. I still carry a lot of things. But maybe soon I'll be able to put some of them down. You fold it. Seal it. Don't send it. Some things aren't for the mail. Some things are just for ghosts. You return home in the form of paperwork first. That's how it works now. Before your boots hit American soil, you exist as carbon copies, clipped forms, and initials scribbled by men who've never held a rifle. You're processed through a demobilization center that smells like starch and cheap soap. A sergeant checks your records like he's scanning groceries. He doesn't look up once. Name, you say it. Cereal. You recite it. Combat theater. You pause. Yes. He doesn't laugh. Just stamps something. You're given a new uniform, fresh uncreased and wildly uncomfortable. It fits like someone else's skin. You put it on anyway. They hand you a train ticket and a paper envelope with your discharge papers inside. Inside the envelope is a form you're supposed to bring to your local draft board. You don't plan on visiting them anytime soon. You board the train at dusk. You don't talk much. No one does. The car smells like denim and weariness. Across from you, a man you don't know eats peanuts like they're a religion. You sleep with your duffel bag under your knees, your hand on your letter to Bishop, just in case. The train rolls through states you barely recognize. Hills you remember from textbooks. Billboards that now seem written in a different language. Victory begins at home, one says. You mumble victory doesn't even have clean socks. You get off somewhere, not quite home, but close. Close enough that you can smell it. A cousin picks you up in a truck that rattles like your old canteen. He asks if you're hungry. You lie and say no. He doesn't push. He drives in silence, the windows down the wind, reminding you that it doesn't care what you've seen. You pass diners, schools, baseball fields. Nothing is destroyed. That feels surreal. Your town hasn't changed much. The hardware store still has a crooked sign. The same dog still sleeps under the bench outside the post office. You step into your childhood home like it's a museum exhibit. You half expect to see a velvet rope across the hallway. Your mother cries. Your father claps your back hard enough to echo. They say, "You look thin." You say, "You look the same." They show you your old room. Everything's in its place. Bed made. Trophies dusted. Posters on the wall like they never knew you left. You sit on the edge of the bed and feel the springs shift under your weight, like they're surprised you're still alive. You sleep that night under a real roof. No bugs, no gunfire, just crickets and the occasional cough from your dad down the hall. And you hate it. Not the bed, not the house, just the quiet, the stillness. It amplifies everything. You dream of the piano in the ruined farmhouse, of Lieutenant Flapjack chewing through your bootlace, of the firework that turned the sky red for 5 seconds over Okinawa. You wake up sweating. Your mom knocks softly. "You okay?" You say, "Yeah." She says, "Okay," and leaves a plate of toast at the door. You nibble it like you're back in the infirmary again. It tastes like memory. You walk into town wearing clothes that fit but not right. You nod to people. Some nod back. Some don't. One man says, "Didn't know you made it." You say, "Didn't either." At the diner, a woman offers you a free slice of pie. You don't know her. She says, "For your service." You want to say, "I didn't do it for pie." You just say, "Thank you. It's cherry." You eat it slowly. The first bite is too sweet. You visit the train tracks and just stand there for a while. You think about the Aleutians, about Tarawa, about that guy who hummed Home on the Range while half his foot was missing. You sit on a bench and try to remember the words to a joke Crenshaw told once. It involved a raccoon and a typewriter. The punchline's gone. You laugh anyway. Historians still argue whether returning soldiers were properly supported, whether the government did enough, whether the country was ready to receive them. You could tell them some things don't come back. You run into Hawkins one day. You barely recognize each other. You say, "You look older." He says, "You look like a ghost." You both nod. It's not an insult. It's just observation. You get a part-time job, moving boxes for a local store. It feels familiar. Heavy things in small spaces. You're good at that now. You eat dinner with your family. You smile at the right times. You say grace. You pass the salt, but part of you is still watching the sky, listening for engines. The war is over, but you're not done being in it. Not yet. They say you never really leave the war. You just start carrying it differently. Your suitcase is light now. Just a few clothes, your discharge papers, a deck of cards missing the 7 of clubs, and that letter to Bishop still folded perfectly, edges worn thin. But inside you, you're a walking museum of everything unspoken. It's summer again. Grass grows too fast, and the air is thick with humidity and lawnmower engines. Everything smells aggressively normal. You sit on your parents' porch, sipping flat root beer that tastes more like memory than flavor. The bottle sweats in your hand. So do you. Sometimes you look up and wonder if there are still planes coming. Even now. Especially now. One morning, your sister's friend comes by. He's in college, wears glasses that don't fit, and talks a little too fast. He asks what it was like over there. You say loud. He says, "Huh," and offers you a pamphlet about reintegration. You fold it into an airplane and leave it on the fence post. You start hearing about other guys who made it back. Some live a few towns over. One works at a gas station. One started a radio show. One moved to California and writes about the war in short stories he never finishes. You think about writing too. But when you try, your pen floats above the page like it's waiting for instructions. You attend a reunion. Not officially. You just happen to be at the same gas station when a familiar face shows up. Sanderson. Aleutians, 1943. You recognize the way he scratches his beard before he talks. You say didn't expect to see you here. He says didn't expect to see anyone. You buy him a cola. He pays you back in silence. The two of you sit on a bench outside the station and talk about everything except the war, weather, baseball, why gas smells better in summer. That's enough. You stop by the post office once a week. You still half expect a letter from Bishop, or Ellie, or Crenshaw, even Flapjack if he's developed literacy. But the box is always empty, except once when there's a postcard from Hawkins. On the front is a picture of Niagara Falls. On the back, still weird, water's loud. Thinking of opening a sandwich shop. You in. H. You don't answer, but you smile for the first time in a week. At night, you lie in bed and stare at the ceiling fan. Its slow rotation reminds you of a tail gunner's turret. You close your eyes and try to hear music instead of engines. Some nights it works. You start volunteering at the library. The job is simple. Shelve books, repair spines, smile politely. You feel calm, surrounded by quiet. Pages don't scream. They don't bleed. They don't forget. One day, you find a young kid reading a history book about the war. Your war. You glance at the page. The Battle of Tarawa was one of the bloodiest conflicts of the Pacific Theater. The boy says, "Sounds cool." You say, "It wasn't." He shrugs and turns the page. Historians still argue whether civilians ever truly understood the war. You're not sure they're supposed to. Some things only make sense when you're ankle deep in them. There's a woman at the grocery store who wears her hair like Rita Hayworth. She smiles at you, once asks if you served. You nod. She doesn't ask more. You like her for that. You start drinking coffee again. Real coffee, not boiled shoe polish. You find yourself staring out the window as you sip, watching birds land and take off like little airplanes that never mean harm. Your father asks if you'll take over the family business. You say maybe. You say you'll think about it. You don't. but it feels good to be asked. Your sister paints a picture of you. It's not very good. Your eyes are lopsided, and she makes your nose too big. But she captures something in the posture. That lean. That weight. You hang it anyway. You keep hearing fireworks in the distance. They're never real. Or maybe they are. But now, every loud crack is a brief trip backward. You learn to smile through it. Mostly. You visit the local school once. The teacher invites you to talk to her class. You step into the room and see all those wide eyes waiting. You say something generic. I served in the Pacific. I came home. Then you sit down. That night, you write the longest letter you've ever written to Bishop. You fill 5 pages. Stories. Jokes. The piano. The ghost boat. The goat. You end with, I hope wherever you are, the sky is quiet. You don't mail it. You burn it in a coffee can behind the house. The flames are fast. The ash is soft. You still carry the ace of spades in your wallet. You still tap your foot 3 times before opening doors. You still check the sky when the wind changes. But slowly, quietly, you start to come home. It's a Tuesday when you see him again. You're standing in line at a gas station clutching a bottle of cola and a pack of chewing gum you don't really want. The air smells like diesel and hot pavement. A fly lands on your collar. You don't swat it. Behind you, someone says, still got that letter, and for a second time folds in half. You turn slowly, and there he is, Roselli from New Guinea. From the heat and the meat cans and the lizard in the canteen saga. He looks older, like someone stretched his features a little too far and forgot to smooth them back. But his voice is the same. You nod. He grins. I knew it was you. No one else has that hairline. You punch him lightly in the arm. He punches back. You pay for your stuff. He pays for nothing. Says it's his turn. You sit on a curb outside the station. Just like before. Same sun. Different sky. He tells you he works nights at a factory, paints cars during the day. Says he's saving up to open a sandwich shop, maybe with a jukebox. You blink. Wait. Hawkins wrote the same thing. Roselli lights a cigarette. Great minds. Also, we all missed sandwiches. That's probably it. You ask if he still eats those canned meat bricks. He groans. Only in nightmares. The two of you talk for a while. Not about the war directly. Just around it. You dance near it with your words. Poke at it like it's sleeping and might wake up. He asks if you still write. You say not really. He shrugs. Maybe you're just saving the last chapter. A car honks. He stands. You take care, all right. You nod. Then without warning, he salutes. You hesitate, then return it. It doesn't feel dumb this time. You walk home with a weird ache in your chest. Not sadness. Not joy. Just a kind of weight you didn't know you missed until someone else helped lift it. That night, you sit by your window with a notebook. You try to write. You get as far as the date, then a knock at your door. It's a neighbor kid. High school age. Tall, awkward, clearly rehearsing what he's about to say. Sorry, sir. My teacher said you might have stories. You stare at him. He fidgets. It's for a paper. We're supposed to ask a veteran. You almost say no, then you don't. You invite him in. You make 2 cups of tea because coffee feels too official. You don't tell him everything, but you tell him something. You talk about the goat, the fireworks, the harmonica in the jungle, the piano with 3 working keys. You skip the rest. He doesn't need to carry what you still do. He thanks you, says he'll write it all down, says he won't change a word. You believe him. Maybe. The next day, you find a photo in the mail. It's from Crenshaw. The photo is grainy black and white with 2 visible shapes, him smiling way too wide and Lieutenant Flapjack wearing a birthday hat. On the back, still alive. Still stupid. Got promoted. Goat outranks me. You laugh so hard you choke on your tea. You tape the photo to your fridge with a magnet shaped like a pineapple. You decide it belongs there. Later that week, you visit the lake on the edge of town. It's where people go when they don't want to explain why they're sitting alone. You bring a sandwich, a pencil, and that notebook. You write, "I don't miss the war, but I miss the men who survived it with me." You underline it twice. You see another familiar face one day in the grocery store. Daniels. The guy who used to eat with that knife-sharpened spoon. He's got a beard now, pushing a cart full of canned peaches. He doesn't recognize you. You don't interrupt, because sometimes the past wants to stay buried. And sometimes it's just peach shopping. Historians will say the veterans came home in 1945. But the truth, some of you are still arriving every year a little more. You go back, not all the way back, just far enough to touch the edges. It starts with a letter. Not from the Army, not from Ellie, not even from Crenshaw. It's from a historical society in Hawaii. Someone tracked down your name. They're hosting a remembrance event at Pearl Harbor. Flights provided, lodging arranged. All you have to do is say yes. You stare at the letter for a long time. Then you say yes. The flight takes hours, but feels shorter than it should. Maybe you nap. Maybe you just forget how time works in the clouds. When you land, the air smells like it used to salt, fruit jet fuel heat, but cleaner. Like someone's been taking care of the memory. A volunteer picks you up in a van. She smiles a lot, talks just enough, and doesn't ask too many questions. You like her. You check into a small hotel that's nicer than expected. You sleep with the window open. The breeze brings in sounds of the ocean and the occasional clink of someone else's drink. In the morning, you dress in your best shirt, the one with the buttons that still work. You tuck in your dog tags, not to hide them, but to keep them close. The memorial is quiet. No speeches yet. Just the sound of feet and whispers and a far-off bugle. You walk slowly down the path toward the harbor. You know the spot before you see it. You feel it in your chest. It's cleaner now, shinier. There's a plaque, flowers, cameras. But beneath the water, the shape of the Arizona still rests, still bleeds oil. A dark shadow under a blue sky. You stand there longer than anyone else. You remember that morning, the crate of coconuts, the old man praying in Japanese, the shoe, You remember Bishop, Crenshaw, the harmonica you never learned to play. You reach into your pocket and take out the letter you never sent. You unfold it slowly. It's soft now from years of handling. You read it to yourself. Just once. Then you fold it again and drop it into the water. It floats for a moment, then sinks. No one sees. You turn around and find yourself face to face with a group of school kids. One of them asks if you fought in the war. You nod. He asks, did we win? You pause. Then you smile and say, we made it home. He doesn't understand. That's okay. He will someday. You walk away from the dock, back to the van, back to the hotel, back to the part of life that happens after the credits roll. That night, you sit on the beach. No music, no noise, just stars and sand and a drink that isn't root beer. You toast the sky. You don't say anything. You don't need to. You keep watch now, but only in memory. No uniform, no rifle. Just your porch chair, a blanket over your knees, and the slow crawl of sunlight across your driveway. The war is long over, has been for decades, but some mornings you still wake like it isn't. The aches in your bones, they used to be from bad boots and trench rot. Now they're just age showing up early for work. The paper boy doesn't know you were in Okinawa. The dog across the street doesn't know you saw a city vanish over a radio crackle. That's how life works now. Everything quietly moves on while you sit still. But you're not bitter. You're just observing. You keep a notebook beside your chair. It's full of odd things, names, half jokes, grocery lists, the occasional dream. There's an entry from a month ago that just says, Lieutenant Flapjack ate my shoelaces again. You smile every time you see it. Some afternoons, you visit the diner. Same counter, new stools. The waitress isn't Rita Hayworth, but she smiles like she could be. You always order the pie. It's still cherry, still too sweet, still tastes like gratitude. One evening, a young man in a sharp uniform sits beside you. He's fresh, polished. He calls you sir. You wave him off. He asks what it was really like. You stare into your coffee and think about what to say. You think about tar-soaked boots, about midnight harmonicas, about that one tree in the jungle shaped like a man leaning forward. You think about Bishop and Crenshaw and Ellie, whoever she was. And then you say, it was loud, it was long, but some nights there were stars. He nods, writes it down in a little book. You never see him again. That's all right. You still get letters from Hawkins, from Roselli, even one from the Historical Society thanking you for the speech you never gave. And now every year, the town puts up a flag in your yard on Veterans Day. You don't ask them to. You don't stop them either. You keep the old harmonica on your windowsill. Still can't play it. Doesn't matter. Your niece asks if you'll ever go back to Hawaii. You say, I already did. She says, did you leave anything there? You think. Then you say, no. I brought it all home. You look at the sky a lot these days. Not for planes, Not anymore. Just because it's there. Big, open, undecided, like the future always was. And sometimes, just sometimes, you fall asleep in that chair. Not because you're old, but because after all this time, you finally can. The war is over now. Really over. Your hands are quiet. Your breath is even. Your story has been told not as a shout, but as a whisper, carried gently through time. You're back in your chair. The sun has set. The stars are soft tonight, dim just enough to soothe, not stir. The world around you hums like a lullaby, distant crickets, the creak of wood, the sigh of wind through leaves. Everything you carried is still with you, but it's lighter now. Like a box someone else is helping to hold. The weight is memory. The burden is love. The ache is proof that you were here and that you made it through. You don't need to watch the sky anymore. Not for danger. Not for news. Not for letters. The sky is just sky now. And if it rains tomorrow, it won't be shrapnel or ash. It'll just be rain. Soft. Normal. Welcome. So take one last breath. A deep one. Let your shoulders drop. Let your hands rest in your lap. You've earned it. The war is over. The world is quiet. You are home. Sleep well, soldier.